Hello everybody, I hope you're having a good day. Well, the news is official. Will Setterfield has been delisted as was being reported by various outlets yesterday that it was going to happen today. Just kind of a quick look at the club's official statement. With the AFL's list lodgement deadline coming today, Essendon has informed Will Setterfield that he'll be delisted ahead of the 2025 Telstra AFL draft. The Bombers are open to exploring opportunities for Setterfield during the upcoming draft, rookie and SSP period. GM Daniel McPherson cited the tough decisions stemming from the club's list squeeze at the conclusion of this season and its focus on the draft. With the final list lodgement coming today, we've made the difficult decision to delist Will ahead of the draft, McPherson said. With our 5 selections this year, the reality is that we couldn't offer Will a list spot at this stage, but we're open to providing him an opportunity through the upcoming draft, rookie and SSP period. So this takes our list numbers down to, I believe, 38. So with 5 picks in the draft, that brings it back up to 43. You're actually allowed a maximum of 44 players on the list. So I believe the reason why Will has been delisted is that we've only got one Category B rookie. So a Category B rookie is a player that comes from a diverse cultural background, and that player is Jaden Nguyen. You're actually allowed a maximum of 2 of those players. So if you had 2 Category B rookies, that would take it up to 44. But Will Setterfield is not a Category B rookie, so he cannot be that 44th player. So that, I believe, is the reason why the list is kind of capped out at 43 at the moment. So look, there are a few things that can happen. I won't go into too much detail about it because I mentioned it in the video yesterday. But if we can trade up with another club and swap 2 picks for 1, that opens up a list spot for Will via the pre-season draft or the SSP period. I don't think West Coast or Richmond will get rid of their positions, picks 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I just look, if I was them, I wouldn't do that. Look, it's possible they could. I don't know. They can still trade picks anytime up until draft day, so that could happen. But I don't think that will happen. I think the most likely outcome, if picks are to be traded, is that 2 of the picks that we've got in the 20s could be traded to get one of the picks in the teens for one of the Queensland clubs. There's various things going on there with matching bids for the academy prospects for those teams, and apparently those picks are in play, so the Mail says, and it will give the club an opportunity sort of to get ahead of a possible bid for Adam Swade as well, even though I don't think that bid would come until the mid-20s. But the reason I kind of made this video was I think this delisting now opens up a bit of a narrative and a bit of a clear path now as to what we may do in the draft. So just before I get into the players that I think now that we're going to look at selecting, and I think it's become much clearer with the delisting of Setterfield, we'll just have a quick look at who has actually been delisted by the club. If you like this channel and the content I provide, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. As you can see on the screen, about 63% of the people who are watching this at the moment are not subscribed. So if you do sort of appreciate the up-to-date and hopefully informative content that I seek to put out there most days, then please consider subscribing to the channel. So, the 9 delistings, and this is now the full 9 delistings. It is now official. Alwyn Davey, Todd Goldstein, Ben Hobbs, Jaden Laverde, Luaman Lual, Jai Menzie, Dylan Shiel, Oscar Smart, and Will Setterfield. So, 3 of those players are midfielders, Setterfield, Shiel, and Hobbs, and they're players that played a fair bit this year. I mean, those players, particularly Setterfield and Hobbs, were in the team more often than not. So we have lost quite a little bit of depth in the midfield. Obviously, have also lost a couple of small forwards there in Oscar Smart and Jai Menzie. So we'll see what happens there. But we've lost 3 midfielders who were pretty key players in our team. Not among the best players, but certainly players that were, for the most part, in the best 23. Now, if you just have a look at who our midfielders are, and I've just got them here on the screen next year. And yes, there are other players on this list that could go in the midfield, like, Langford and players like that. But you've basically got Merrett, Durham, Martin, Caldwell, Parrish, Sartis, Dersma, and El Hooley. And you've also got McGrath, who's a nominal defender, but does spend a bit of time in the midfield and could be there next year. And Kako as well, who as well is a nominal forward, but has spent a bit of time in the midfield. And he actually is quite a dynamic player in there when he goes in there. So we've got a reasonable midfield if you look at it on paper, although there's always 1 or 2 or 3 of those players that are unavailable for various reasons. I've said openly, I think our inside mids are generally pretty strong. We've got Caldwell, Parrish, Durham, and Sartis as kind of inside mids. And I don't really like the phrase inside and outside mid generally, because you're really, in this game, you need to be a little bit of both. It's not as if an inside mid never gets the ball on the outside, and it's not as if an outside mid is never required to win the ball on the inside either. You all are required in this game to be able to have a good skill set as a midfielder and to do both. But if I had to classify them as inside or outside, I'd classify Caldwell as more of an inside. He's more of a defensive mid, I guess, but I'd classify Caldwell, Parrish, Sartis, Durham as more kind of inside players than outside, and I'd classify Merrett as a bit more of an outside than an inside. And we've lost a couple of, I guess, inside ones in Setterfield and Hobbs. So that begs the question, what are we going to do in the draft? And let's just work on the assumption that we've got 5 picks. And with those 5 picks now, I think 3 of them are going to be midfielders. I think that's pretty clear. One of them is probably going to be a small forward. That's most likely going to be Al Achkar. I don't think it's certain that we're going to pick up both academy prospects. I think it's more likely than not that we do. So let's just work on the assumption that we do. So I think we're going to have a small forward in Al Achkar, 3 midfielders, one of them being Adam Swade, and the other 2 I'm going to get to in a moment. And the other player is perhaps just the best player available, whoever it happens to be. We're hoping it could be a Roby. We just don't know. I don't think he will last to our pick. I've seen some draft boards that have Cooper Duff Titler go as low as 5. It just depends. But I think now, when you look at the picks that we've got at picks 5 and 6, I think both of those players are most likely to be mids. Most likely. Now, assuming Roby is not available, and I'm suggesting he probably won't be, he could be, but suggesting he probably won't be, I would think the 2 picks now are going to consist of 2 of the following 4 players. I think they're going to consist of 2 of Dyson Sharp, Sam Grill, Jacob Farrow, and Sam Cumming. So I think those 4 players, I think it'll be 2 of those 4 players in my view. Cumming, I think, is probably the best of them. But look, the draft is always a little bit of it's a bit hit and miss. We're all experts at draft time, and if you have a look at the history of the draft, we all end up getting it wrong. But I reckon, Dyson Sharp, Sam Grill, Jacob Farrow, Sam Cumming, probably 2 of those 4 are probably going to be selected by the Bombers. And it feels that way given who we've been delisted. You can't delist, Setterfield, Hobbs and Shiel, and also you've got the prospect of Merrett going at the end of the year. That's the other thing as well, right? He may not go, but I'd say it's probably 50-50 he goes at the end of the year, and then perhaps almost certain he goes at the end of 2027 when his contract's up. So you've got to also factor that into account. Farrow is a WA player, of course. He'll be a good pickup for whoever gets him. I'm a big fan of Sam Grill, as I've said numerous times, because I like his outside run. I think he's exciting. I don't think we've had a player like that who can run and bounce the ball and really take the game on, probably since Adam Sard left. Now, I know Adam Sard was more of a defender, and it's probably not an exact like-for-like comparison, but when he was just bursting out of defence and running and taking a bounce, he could really be a game changer and really sort of electrify the crowd and everything like that. We haven't had a player like that since, in my opinion anyway, really since Sard left to go to Carlton. And Grill is a midfielder, not really a defender, but the way he is so explosive and quick, and he's so athletic with his draft combine results, his agility test and the 20-metre sprint and all that, he's such a good player. I think he would be in the mix. But I think now Dyson Sharp as well, who I've openly said I probably don't think was suited to our list, he certainly comes into play. I've got to say that. And you have to acknowledge that he is ready to go next year. He has been playing against men. He is renowned as being a good leader. He is on the draft board for numerous clubs in the top 5 or 6. And given our loss of a couple of inside mids and the fact that he's ready to go next year, I think he becomes a real live possibility. Of the 4, I would probably pick, in my opinion, I would take Grill and Cumming. That's who I'd take. You can ask 10 different people and you'll probably get 10 slightly different answers. And that's assuming Roby's not available. I admit it would be very, very difficult to pass up on, say, Xavier Taylor if he was still there at 5 or 6. He's obviously the best defender in the draft, and you almost would be obligated to pick him. But you've got to remember, guys, in addition to the midfielders that we've delisted, Merrett isn't going to be there maybe at the end of this year. At worst, he's probably not at the end of 2027. So we're probably going to lose our best player and best midfielder within 2 years, and that has to be replaced as well. So you've got to think long term with this. And so it would be very, very hard to pass up on Xavier Taylor. Maybe if he was available, you would pick Taylor and one of those mids and hope that one of those other mids that I've just mentioned slides further down the draft, and you could pick them up later in the draft. It would be unlikely that they would slide that far, but obviously then that brings in the possibility of trading up to get pick 15 and hoping that a Grill would slide that far down so you could pick up 2 of them and Xavier Taylor. It's hard. It's a difficult thing. I tend to change my mind every day when I'm looking at these players. You're probably the same. But yeah, look, I admit it would be hard to pass up on Taylor. But with the impending loss of Merrett coming in coming years, I really think we need to shore up this midfield first. So I would take one outside mid in Grill, and I'd probably take Cumming. But certainly Dyson Sharp, I have to say, is in the mix now, and I think the club will be looking at him very, very closely. And I think there's something to be said for taking an inside mid in Sharp and an outside mid in Grill. I think that's probably a good thing, but it will be hard to pass up on Sam Cumming as well, because I think Cumming is probably the most naturally talented of those 4 players that I listed. That's in my view from what I've seen of them. Obviously, it's not an exact science, and you can have many different opinions, but it's going to be a really, really tough decision. But my view is, I think of those 4 players, Sharp, Grill, Farrow and Cumming, I think 2 of them probably get picked at 5 or 6, assuming that the Robies of the world are already gone by that stage. And I think now it becomes pretty clear for the Bombers what we're going to do. We're going to pick Adam Swade with an inside mid, and we're going to probably pick 2 other mids, assuming that the better players are gone by pick 5 or 6. So what do you guys think? What do you think we should do in the draft with those 2 picks now that Will Setterfield has been delisted? Because this changes things. It absolutely does. It absolutely changes things. We've lost a good, hard-nosed midfielder, a pretty good team player, and a pretty popular player amongst his teammates. And I do hope that he does find a spot at another club if it's not with Essendon. Then again, there is that slight possibility that he ends up back next year. So I think we're going to have 2 midfielders. Who do you think it should be? Are you leaning towards Cumming and Grill? Are you leaning towards Sharp and Cumming, or Sharp and Grill, etc.? Or do you pick Xavier Taylor and then the best available mid and just hope another one of those really good mids does tend to slide and you can pick them up sometime later in the draft? It's all up in the air at the moment, and we're going to find out. It's only 3 weeks away, and it's all very exciting to see who's going to be playing for the Bombers next year. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe to this channel. Have a great day, and as always, go Bombers!
Switched